welcome to Living a Legacy. And I'm excited to welcome to the program the host, Eric Couch. Eric, what's going on?
Hey man, welcome to 2021, buddy. We're excited.
Yeah, always great guests we have, but this one again is a super guy, right?
He's Superman. So today we have Dean Cain, actor, producer, former professional football player. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. Dean, welcome to the show, buddy.
Appreciate it, Eric. Thanks, Neil. I'm happy to be here, and I like the intro, so I'll take it.
Yeah, Eric's great with the intros, and let just Eric go right to the questions for sure, Dean.
Absolutely. Hey, so Dean, now, I've heard about you, but I didn't know that you had played, you were like the super athlete, set a record at Princeton in football, and that you went on to be pulled with the Buffalo Bills, right?
That's correct. Yes. So I was always a football player growing up. I was an athlete. I played every sport under the sun. That's sort of how I really pictured myself. I identified as an athlete first and foremost, then a student. I was a good student as well. I went to Princeton, so I did okay. But I was a top athlete at my high school. I was a top athlete at my university. Excuse me. I was really blessed and fortunate enough to get a shot to make it to the NFL. I lasted a short period of time before I was injured, and that's when it was nice that I had that backup, that Princeton University degree, so I could become an actor.
Right. So you can become an actor, Dean. That's funny. That's a good one. But I think that as we all know, storytelling is such an important thing to have that knowledge base, right? Don't you agree, Eric? That you
absolutely
being a great character actor takes lots of talent and ability. For sure.
So how did you transition now? Now I read some of your backstory about, being adopted by your father and change your name to Cain and getting into, being an athlete, but living in Malibu. He was a director, right? So I'm guessing somehow that played in, but would love to hear kind of how do you transition from I'm a football dude to I'm Superman?
It's a good story, I think. Well, like I said, I'd always been a student and an athlete, and I'd always been able to do those things very well. And I loved doing those things. And growing up in Malibu, it was it's a very small community. And my parents' best friends were Leo and Eileen Penn, the parents of Sean Penn, Chris Penn. And I grew up with Rob Lowe and Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. And my dad directed those guys in movies and things. As an athlete, I mean, as a student, as an athlete, I couldn't wait to get to college. I knew that playing football was the best sport. Although I played several, volleyball, I ran track, I played baseball, I wrestled, I sort of did everything. And so I was like, I want to be able to go to a university, a great school, and I want to play football there. And eventually, I'm sure when I started thinking about, getting into a job, I remember being at Princeton, maybe it was my sophomore year, and everybody was doing these internships on Wall Street, and they were, doing 80 hours a week in a suit and tie in sweaty, hot New York in the summertime. And I was like, that sucks. As I left school, and then I would go to my dad's set while he was filming Young Guns, and all these kids that I grew up with are riding on horseback, pretending to be cowboys, having a freaking blast, telling stories. I was like, wait a minute. This one seems a lot more fun. And it's something that I'm having grown up on sets my whole life. There's something about it. There's something about being able to be there and be a storyteller. And then as I was a history major in college. So, and that's just one big story.
Wow. I'm a history major as well, Dean. I got an undergrad in history, master's in education. So, yeah.
Where's I'm the guy in the financial world that did the 80 hours a week, and I'll say did. We'll leave it at that, right?
You still have hair. You still have hair. Not like most of my friends who are in the financial world. I'll tell you that.
Well, I say that, my dad was bald at 30, so I'm grateful. I'm like, look, I got hair. It's real. We can pull on this stuff here.
But you're only like 28, so you got 2 years left.
That's right. That's right.
So, being around, growing up in the film world, I was exposed to it so much, and it was a great thing. And my dad started pushing me into writing because he thought I was a good writer and always thought I should be writing and didn't want me to be an actor. because he didn't want people to be picking on me. It becomes very personal, how you look, the way you say things, what your life is, what your political leanings are. Anything starts to work against you as an actor because you become known. You lose your anonymity. And as a parent,
Right.
he didn't want that for me. And he had seen it happen to my friends who had all become sort of famous, some of them under my dad's tutelage, and they made some bad mistakes, and he didn't want that. And those were amplified in the media. And he was like, I don't want you out there
Right.
doing that.
Anything you can or say will be used against you
in a court of law, or a court of public opinion.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But he didn't want that for me. And I understand as a parent wanting to protect your kid. And that's a piece of advice I give to everybody who asks, hey, so if I want to get in film, what do you think? What's the best way to do it? And I said, I'll give you the advice my dad gave me. It's 3 words. Don't do it. And the reason being that it's so difficult and there's so much to it, but unless you have to do it, don't. And what that really means is, unless that's what your calling is, unless that is your passion and you can't think of doing anything else, do something else. If it's something you like on the side, it's never going to be what you want it to be, or rarely ever could possibly be. But if it's what you live for and it just gets you fired up like nothing else, then you can't listen to anybody who says don't do it. And that's how it works.
Not do it.
Exactly. You can't not do it.
Well, let's talk about, now you've done some diverse movies, right? A lot of people know you from Lois and Clark, being Superman for several seasons there.
Not a bad thing to be known for, in my opinion. I can be known for worse things, and so I'm happy to be known.
You could be known for worse things than Superman. Not a bad thing to be considered throughout society. But you've also been, and we're going to get a bit into your latest movie in a few minutes, so I don't want to steal all the thunder yet. But you've been in a lot of movies, from, of course, playing the role of Superman in Lois and Clark, but also one of our family favorites is God's Not Dead, and then Faith Under Fire. Where did that transition, and then what made you choose to go with those movies?
Well, there's a million reasons, and some of them aren't even choices. Sometimes that's the job that was there at the time. But being a parent sort of changed everything in my world, and I think that happens to a lot of people. Your life is going on, and it's all about you, and you're a kid, you're growing up, and me, and all of a sudden,
right,
you're a parent, and you realize that this person cannot live without you wiping their mouth, giving them food, doing this, they can't walk. They can't, it's like, they can't tell you what's wrong with them. And you realize how important you are to this person. Also, the idea that you can just create a life. I mean, the moment I saw my son, it was a weird thing. And
it changes everything.
Oh yeah. I couldn't explain it. It was like, did I love him immediately? Yeah, I know. Yes, I did. But it was this thing, and I immediately just wanted to care for it. It's this thing that I had to just care for him. He never was out of my sight. Like I walked into this room with him. He never left me. And it was incredible, that feeling. And it's just gotten stronger as he's gotten older, and he's 20. But there was the moment when he was 5 years old, when we were talking about life and death and God and things, where he realized that he was going to die one day. And I don't think he likes me telling this story. I don't know how he feels about it really, but I tell it. It's because it's one of those moments that you never forget. He was so bothered by it, so upset, his body would just shake. At night, I would take him outside and sit outside under the stars and sit there and talk to him, and talk to him about life and death and God and afterlife and what do you believe, what people believe. And so he was part of I've always been wondering about faith, and I've always been very, very desirous of hearing all about all different faiths. I studied all different faiths in college as well. And it's just something that's very important, I think, to the human condition. And obviously we all have our beliefs, and they come from things we're taught and the experiences we live here on this earth. And so I was like, these are huge, important issues that go down to the very reason that we're here. So having these conversations with my son sort of opened me up to that. And then I realized, I want him to have I went to a Catholic high school for a little while, but faith wasn't something that was big taught in schools. I sent him to a Christian a private Christian high school because I wanted him to have that basis in faith. And then there was a moment, something went terribly wrong business wise. And I remember it was like I got punched in the stomach. I remember it literally felt like I got punched in the stomach. And after I hung up that phone, he saw me, and he was maybe 9 years old. And he was like, Dad, hey, it's okay. You know, God's got a different plan for this. And I was like, who are you? Counseling.
Babes.
And I remember the relief I felt from hearing that out of his mouth and believing it was amazing. And so he and I, you know, with my son, we've traveled to all through Israel and Jordan, and been to some of the most religious sites on the planet. So, you know, faith is something that's important to me, and it's not something that I want to bang people over the head with. And I don't think you should bang them over the head with in a film either. I think that's why God's Not Dead was such an important film and such a good film. You're not preaching to the people all the time.
Right, exactly.
And people get it.
Who you are, right?
Pardon me?
It's just standing up for who you are, right?
Yes.
It's you know, I tell people, I was like, you know, having faith is like deciding to lose weight or a lot of other things, right? Nobody can make that decision for you. In fact, if they try to make the decision for you, it's just going to push you further away, right? So having faith is a decision that I have to make. And the only way I can help someone along the path is just be authentic and real and tell my story. Because I don't know about your story. I haven't walked in your shoes.
That's it.
Yeah.
So powerful. Yeah.
That's awesome. You got a wise son, my friend.
Yeah. And we could probably see it again with films that sometimes choose you. I think this newest film, Eric, that you want to talk about with Dean is just powerful because of the fact of the matter, it can happen to any person just based on the circumstance. Yeah.
And actually, you know what, Neil, before I do that, I'm totally distracted. I can't lie. Because Dean, you've got one of my heroes right behind you on the wall. So Chris Kyle.
Chris Kyle was a great friend of mine, certainly a hero of mine. One of the most humble men I've ever known.
Yeah.
Obviously one of the most lethal, very devout Christian, very, very strong faith in God.
American sniper.
And he's the greatest American sniper, most lethal sniper in American history. But again, the most humble guy in the world. And again, a great friend of mine. And we did a show to celebrate the military folks and things, but we had to do all the crazy amounts of military training and simulated missions. I mean, jumping out of helicopters and descending off, blowing stuff up, all live fire, all everything. So he had to train me every day for 6 weeks. So we became fast, good friends. And I'm still friends with his widow and the family. And, you know, he's one of my heroes. So I love having him.
I remember the day. So I live in Dallas, right? And, you know, Dallas, Fort Worth. And I remember the day of his funeral, and it's like time stood still. I mean, I was one of the ones standing on the side of the road, but to see, you know, the hearse drive, and there's people along the freeway on I-20 on both sides and above the overpasses. I mean, there were thousands of people with signs to just honor the life of this one quiet kind of, you know, just introspective dude. That was just such a powerful, you know, he was a sheepdog, right? He was a protector. And I think that's what we're all called to be.
Agreed. And it's funny that you say that, and I'm going to make this transition before you have to even do so. Yes, he was a sheepdog, and we talked about things all the time. I got to spend a lot of time with him, downtime. I was with him, like I said, all day, every day for 6 weeks. And we had to depend on each other, and because we'd have to jump out of a helicopter using a descender, drop 65 feet below the chopper together, have to link up and get dropped into a Zodiac together. So everything we had to do was we'd depend on each other. And he's like, I got to depend on you, and you got to depend on me. So we have to bond in that sense. And it was, and we did. But one of the times in between we were shooting, we had all sorts of different operators there, Delta Force guys. We had Army Rangers. We had, you know, SWAT commanders, some police officers, all kinds of people. And he was talking to a police officer, and he was saying, listen, I have such respect for you guys and what you have to do, because anytime you roll up on any call, a domestic call, pull somebody over, you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know who the bad guys are. You don't know anything. It's more dangerous to be a police officer in his eyes. This is what Chris was saying, than it is to be a Navy SEAL fighting because they know who the bad guys are. They knew who they were fighting. And he said so his respect for them was so high. He was even talking about possibly being a police officer himself.
Yeah.
That led me, I'd always sort of thought about the same things. That's why I am now a reserve police officer in Pocatello, Idaho. I've been a reserve police officer for about 4 years now. I'm a sheriff's deputy in Frederick County, Virginia. I got sworn in there last year. I work on a Internet Crimes Against Children task force. So Crimes Against Children Foundation is this foundation I work with when we're in departments. And I work with the Internet Crimes Against Children groups, which is the ICAC groups that try and prevent things like this film, Traffic, The Parent's Worst Nightmare. Like the character I play is somebody who is the embodiment of basically what we're doing in these departments.
Right.
Wow.
And that is the new movie. So it's a terrifying reality for some, right? It's a terrifying, imagine, I mean, even as a parent, for it to have never happened, it's absolutely debilitating, terrifying to think that could happen. But the reality is it does happen. And there's over 2 million people, I'm told today, there's more people that are slaves today than any time in history because of human trafficking. So tell us about this movie.
See, if you said that out loud to a group, almost nobody would believe that.
No.
But it's the truth, and it's worldwide. And within the United States, almost 800,000 kids go missing the numbers are shocking. And here's the thing. So if you want to protect your kids, and we all do, the problem is there's the internet, and the internet is such a great form of communication, but you're also letting the rest of the world into your house. These games that the kids are playing on, these TikTok, the sites, the things, they're interacting with predators all the time, and they don't know it.
No, they have no idea.
And then my son is 20 now. I've been having these conversations with him forever that I can remember. My godkids are almost 10. I have those same conversations with them. So what I chose to do as a parent was my son could only play those games, and he could play them all he wanted to in my company. He had to be in my office with me. We played them together. I also got involved in the games he played. I played all the games with him. So I listened, and I'm a gamer. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Going on. I listened to the people who were talking.
Yeah.
That stuff, kids are getting approached all the time and have no idea. And it happens in our film. At the beginning of the film, there's a young teenage girl. And of course, she thinks this guy's a beautiful young man. He's interested in her, showing her attention and affection. And oh my gosh, that's exciting and it's fun. And, I don't want my parents to know. Well, as a parent, you should know every password your kid has until they're old enough to leave the nest. And even then, you should have established a trust so much that they would trust you with about anything. I told my son, if I go to something, one of your apps, and I don't know the password, the phone is either going to swim or it's going to fly. But because I don't ever want that to happen, and I'm confiscating it, and you're not going to be able to do that stuff.
Right.
Because you have to watch everything, because those people are slick. They are slick, and they will prey upon anybody who shows an opening or a weakness. And all kids going through adolescence are feeling those things, feeling left out, mad at their parents, mad at their brother or sister. They feel, ostracized by their friends. And here's somebody who's suddenly being so friendly. Oh, then let's meet up. I mean, you have to have these conversations with your kids, saying that people you're talking to on the internet aren't necessarily who they are. They're not who they say they are.
Yeah. So
be very wary. And it's a scary thing. And this human trafficking stuff that exists in the United States, people want to bury their head in the sand like an ostrich, but it's huge. It's a huge problem. And you need to pay attention to what your kids are doing online.
Well, thank you for raising a voice to it, because it's huge. It hits home with me, because one of our really close friends, it happened to their 13-year-old daughter 3 months ago. And fortunately, I mean, this is the grace of God in a weird way. Some 16, 17-year-old boy showed up at their front door because he had the app that told him where she was and where she lived. So he's like, I'm coming over, I'll talk to your dad. And the dad's standing in the front yard when the boy pulls up, and he was like, yeah, I want to see your daughter, blah, blah, blah. And the dad's like, almost strangled him. But you could tell he was young and stupid, and he's not the 26-year-old or 40-year-old that she's that's also been trying to, because man, they were coming at her from every direction. She gave one kid every penny, hundreds of dollars because he said he loved her. And I mean, it was just, and she got so wrapped up in it that she was terrified to say anything. So had that kid not showed up at their front door, we don't know what it would happen. That's why I was like, it's a grace of God that the kid just showed up because he was an idiot, but it at least illuminated the issue so that they could resolve it. And they brought in wise counsel, but it could happen to anybody.
Anybody. That's what people don't understand. It's because that internet is in your household, and everybody, we're all flawed. We're all human beings. We all want to be liked or loved or attention paid to us. And so it happens. And that's why I say you got to pay attention. It's fortunate that that kid, I mean, that the dad was there. I mean, very fortunate that, my son had that thing on his phone. Listen, we didn't go through everything scot-free, by the way. We had our own, there were some issues that took place. I realized once he blocked his location sharing, something was fishy. And there's things like that you can find in a heartbeat. And he was so concerned about me paying attention to where he was at one point. I was like, this isn't right. You're doing something that's not right. And and it's real easy to figure it out because they think they're smart, but it's like, I didn't eat the cookies and there's cookies all over their face. You're like, what are you saying? No, they're right in the bag where they were supposed to be. You're like, I can eat half a cookie off your face. So, but that sort of stuff you have to pay incredible attention to, and it's just for their safety. And that's you have to have that conversation because they don't. I'm old enough. I can take care of myself. I don't need you telling me what to do.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's a dance we have to dance, but at the end of the day, it's just you're being concerned for their well-being and knowing where they are. And I'm not saying put a tracker in your kid's car, but I'm not saying don't.
Right.
Exactly. Especially that scares you, and then they can see it for sure. We'll talk about really quickly where we can find information on the movie Traffic. But go ahead, Eric. Legacy question. So we have one more question for Dean.
So Dean, one thing that we always so our show's called Living a Legacy, and it's about celebrities and amazing people using their influence to impact the world around them, right?
Gift to be able to have that influence. It's a tremendous gift to have influence, to have anybody listen to anything you might say. It's a pretty awesome place to be.
Yeah, to have influence. And that's exactly what Trafficked is doing, that you chose to be in that project. God's not dead. And, I'd say the Lord's using you in a bunch of areas where you just decided this is who I am and this is what I want to support. So, with Living a Legacy, the question would be, when you think about your legacy, whether it's as a father, as an actor, as a human, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
I'd love to be remembered as a person who did good, did good for people, whether it's through storytelling, mentoring, being a law enforcement officer. Who knows what the future is going to bring in my life, but as someone who was a good moral person who just wanted to do good for his fellow human beings, and hopefully I will attain that position of being able to help a lot of people. I've been able to travel the entire world, doing charity work in the slums of Africa, in the outskirts of Vietnam, Nicaragua, Australia, New Zealand, all through Europe, Asia. I've been able to go everywhere and touch a lot of lives, and it's pretty amazing to think about. And so if I can inspire people, and I'm known as somebody who used my life and my influence for good to help people, that's a win. That's a wonderful legacy. For me to have that is incredible. So I try to live my life in a way that, if someone looks at the way I've lived my life and the choices that I've made, that me living my life the way it is living a legacy. I'd like to believe that the things that I'm doing, that's a representative of who I am. And whether it's being a law enforcement officer or being a devoted father, I turned down more money to be a father. Like I turned down an entire show that would have made me so much money, but I would have had to have been an absentee father because I was in a custodial fight with his mother. I ended up with full custody of him later on, but I turned down, it would have made me the highest paid actor or one of the highest paid actors in television, but I turned it down. So because I wasn't going to be a father, I wouldn't be a present father. And as a kid who's adopted, I understand how important it is to have my father in my life.
We got Jeannie Seely here from Classic Country. She's an American singer, songwriter, record producer. She also had several acting credits, published several songs, and Grammy Award, Don't Touch Me. And just welcome to the show, Jeannie.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you on.
I did all that.
You did.
Yeah, and so let's take us back really quickly, Jeannie, to think about that time when you wanted to be a singer. When did that come up that you said, I want to be a singer and a performer? How old were you?
I knew when I was 8 years old what I wanted to do and where I wanted to do it, actually. Of course, I grew up during World War II, earliest memories in Ernest Tubb and listening to the Grand Ole Opry. And so I just knew, I often tell people it wasn't just to perform on that stage that made its impact on me. That sounded like a family, like a close group of friends that laughed together, sang together, had fun, joked with each other. And I wanted that too. I wanted to be a part of that. So I remember I was in a little school program in third grade. I was 8 years old, and I heard the little bit of applause, and it's like, yeah, now I know for sure this is what I want to do.
Yeah, a lot of stars have that vision at a young age, 8 years old, typically. I wanted to ask you, because you come from classic country, right? So what's your opinion of how country has evolved, from classic country, which I love, to some of the stuff we're hearing today?
Well, every decade, every generation brings their own styles, their own message in their songs. And I think that country music, maybe more than any other, has always reflected the ordinary life we live. I know that's the way I've always felt. I'm no different than any other American girl. I just sing and write songs for a living. So I think that it's just natural that it changes. And, a lot of people say, well, it's just not the same. Well, when I got here, it wasn't the same. I mean, I remember getting criticism because I had strings on some of my early records instead of fiddle. And with all due respect to Kitty Wells, I didn't want that sound of steel guitar. I wanted Buddy Emmons. So I think every generation brings in their own sound. And if we don't like it, maybe it's not, or maybe we're not in that generation anymore. But there's some incredible new talent out there. I am blown away by some of the young female entertainers and the songs.
Do you have a favorite?
Carly Pearce is very special to me.
Cool.
And I've watched her grow and develop her talent since the early days at Dollywood, and we became friends and actually kind of neighbors here. And I've always been impressed by Carly's work ethic from a young age. And so I like to point her out when I'm talking to people, and young people especially that want to do this, say, don't be taken away by the lights, the costumes, and the glamour, because there's a lot of hard work behind it, a lot of tedious hours, and a lot of miles on the road, and it's lonesome out there sometimes too.
Let's talk about work ethic. You talked about how you like certain people with work ethic. Would you say, especially making it, you had to work really hard? 8 years old, you figured out this is what I wanted to do. When did that work ethic come into being, and see how much do you think that was why you became successful as a singer, is because of your work ethic?
Well, I think that was really hammered into me and my family, which at the time I fussed, of course, about my chores and all, but looking back, I'm so grateful for that. But yes, at 8, wanting to do it, I started radio in Meadville, Pennsylvania when I was 11. And then I started working with the dance band when I was 13. And in my teenage years, was actually on Sunday nights. I remember we were working like this dinner club, dinner dance, everything club up in Erie. And like every other kid, I left my homework till Sunday night. So I would get up and sing some songs, and then I'd go back in the corner where they had a light set up for me and do homework. And so yeah, I always multitask. And later when I went to work, went to work on a bank when I got out of school, but I was still singing the weekends. So I drug in pretty tired some Monday morning, but the work week went on anyway. So yeah, I'm glad that I had that kind of background, and I still work all the time.
And
But
that's and
but
there's
I
just
love what
something.
I do.
Say, Dave, isn't there something about work?
Of
Once you have that
course.
hard work ethic, it doesn't disappear, does it, Dave?
Idle hands are the devil's workshop. You all come from
Well,
the Bible Belt.
that's yeah, yeah. My mom quoted that too, and well, and the old saying, find something you love to do. Then
That's right.
it's not hard work, and it's a
Yes.
passion, and it's just my joy. It just simply
Yeah.
is.
Now, Jeannie, back in the 70s, as you know, that the country show Hee Haw really brought a lot of attention to country music and was the cause of a lot of crossovers. Where were you during Hee Haw, and were you pretty supportive of it? I'm sure you were.
I was supportive of it, and made several guest appearances on the show. I thought Hee Haw was good in a lot of ways, and also I had some problems with it. I had some issues. I thought that the comedy things, some of the comedy came off as comedy, but I was also afraid at times you're not funny enough. This is looking like you're putting people down. I didn't like that. My other problem was it with it, I didn't think that it represented women in the way I wanted us represented on a regular basis. If you think back,
Right.
it was either the character, the toothless hair and
Yeah.
curlers that Ronnie Stoneman played, or to the ditzy blonde, the big bosoms,
And her short
dumb
shorts. Yeah.
honeys, or whatever. You had Roy Clark and Buck Owens, both as straight on country
Yeah.
stars,
Yeah.
but you didn't have a female representative in that way.
And
Yeah.
that's the really thing that about you, Jeannie, is that you represented women, and there were not a ton of country women stars when you were starting out, right? To look up to and say that this is what I want to be. Would you agree?
Right. There were very few before me, and that's why I think I had a lot of influence on the pop singers from the 50s. Remember, there was a show called The Hit Parade in the 50s where we saw Patti Page and um, I can't even think, Teresa Brewer. I remember, loved Teresa Brewer. And a lot of the pop singers is what I tried to emulate them and their presence on stage, and because that's really, like you say, all I had to look up to learn from.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes in the music industry. Things just aren't done the same way they were done before. How about some insights about the direction that you see the industry going, and maybe the future?
Well, who knows? I never even dreamed of a time we would have the technology to be doing what we're doing now. I mean, and who knows that technology is changing so fast. I mean,
Mm.
something 2 years ago was out of date now. And of course, with the pandemic, who knew we could changed so fast to what we're doing also. So I really have no idea. I'm very technically challenged. If anything, if it goes exactly like planned, I can do it. But if not, I'm hollering at Bev real quick.
Well, I don't know. You got a golden microphone there. That's
Oh
pretty
yeah, well
impressive.
that's what I'm used to, you know. But a lot of you know, like when people will ask me how to for a young artist, and I just have to be honest and say I would have no idea how to start today. The
Yeah, it's
only
totally
thing I
different.
can say that's always consistent is sing wherever you can, talk wherever you can. So you hopefully somebody's listening and
Yeah.
will pay attention. That
That's
hasn't changed.
absolutely. And I think it also has music live on. The new technology allows people to enjoy your music that maybe at times when it was a certain fad and everyone gave up in a certain style of music, say, okay, that's old. We're not only oldies. Now everyone younger are getting to listen to your music. How does that feel?
Oh, I think it's wonderful when I hear some of the people say, "Well, you know, I don't like any of this stuff today," and you can't hear what I really like. Well, I disagree because again, with age of technology, we are so fortunate. We can find and hear and see anything we want any
Yeah.
time of the day or night. So I think things are better than they used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you about your writing. You're still writing, yeah?
Yes, I am.
So, are you writing for other artists as well?
Well, I don't usually write for somebody. I just have an idea or a feeling and I write it, and where it
Mhm.
lands, that's, you know, who knows. But the most recent thing was a song that I wrote with Bobby Tomberlin and Aaron Enderlin, a song called Like I Could, that Rhonda
Uh,
Vincent, I just was telling her that I had never done a writing appointment in
uh-huh.
all the years that I had written. And then this was my first one. And I was real happy about the song. She said, "Well, can I hear it?" And so I wasn't even
Yeah.
pitching the song. I was just telling her the story and saying she loved it. So she took it all the way to number one in the bluegrass charts. So
Wow. That's the
very
way to go.
proud of that. Yeah.
Good
And I
job.
got several of them started. And of course, about the time I got brave enough to do a writing appointment, everything closed down. So we
Um,
can't get together. So I don't know. I
Well,
haven't
there's
tried the
still Zoom.
yeah, I haven't tried the Zoom writing yet, but Steve Warner's doing it. So Steve can do it, I can do
That's right.
it.
Now, let's talk a little bit about writing. How do you get your creative juices going to write songs?
Well, it's usually if I get an idea that I know is good, it's different, it's fresh, um, then I get excited about it. To just, I still haven't done the appointment where you just go in and say, okay, what are we going to write about today? I still haven't done one of those. But I'm keeping notes all the time because there again, I'm told that it's okay to go to a writing session without some idea that's just burning in your heart and brain. That
Yeah.
sometimes when you get in that network, that it inspires you to come out with something. So I'm looking forward to the first time for that.
So I'm sure you've done a lot of tours in your career. Do they take a lot out of you? And are you still doing tours? I don't think so, right?
Well, I was not really tours, but um, anymore I like to run out and do a couple of shows and come home. So, um, but I was out there on the road for a long time, and I loved that life. I really did. I loved that lifestyle and had a lot of fun and made a lot of wonderful friends. But as time went on and goes on, it gets a little bit more difficult to do. And here again today, with the conditions in the world today, there's just way more going on than I feel like I need to deal with that much. If
Man.
there's something really fun, it's like I tell people all the time when they'll ask me about doing something, I'll say, whoa, wait a minute. You got to realize I'm not building a career here. I'm just trying to enjoy what's left of this one. And, but there's certain the acts that I love to work with. And I was thrilled to be able to go to Branson and work with Rhonda Vincent on her show up
Oh.
there during the Christmas season. I always love to go do some shows with Gene Watson, his band. I just love his band, and Mo Bandy is another favorite of mine because of we're so kind of different,
Yeah.
and we're all close friends. But
Uh-huh.
those packages work very well, and of course, my dear friend Bill Anderson, I'll be with him wherever and whenever I can.
Do you know Willie Nelson?
Oh,
You
very
worked with
well.
him? Are you on his
Yes,
network or
well,
something? Tell me about that.
he's he did a duet with me on this latest
Oh.
project. And since you're in LA, I will tell you this: when I first met Willie, was when he was recording an album for Liberty Records called "And Then I Wrote." And he didn't remember meeting me then because I was just there at the studio helping. I always volunteered to work at the studios, do whatever they needed to do so that I could learn. And but then he remembered me more shortly after that, when one of my jobs at Imperial Record was to rent some offices. So I rented an office to Willie Nelson,
Oh.
and so we met in 63, 64
Wow.
in
What
LA.
is your favorite fondest memory working with Willie? It's knowing it's his,
Um, oh my goodness, there's so many. I was blessed to be able to open for Willie on his fair dates in
Mm.
81 and 82. Those were just exciting summers. And uh, just being around Willie and that calm that he's always got. It's just always about joy and a good time. There's a, don't bring problems to Willie Nelson's camp. He doesn't want to hear them. But we just had a great time. And um, I was trying to think. I can't really remember right now the last time he and I really actually worked together, but we talk on the phone.
I
And
love
of
Willie.
course, I'm a part of Willie's Roadhouse on Sirius XM, which is a total joy to be a part of that Willie family.
yeah. And tell us a little bit more about how like being on Sirius and how cool that is, especially to keep this going and be able to be part of country music in that way, being on Willie's Roadhouse.
Well, I was so thrilled when they called me and asked me if I would be interested in doing an air personality shift, because I hadn't really thought about it. And actually, the way I more or less auditioned is kind of interesting, because we do a fundraiser here for Music Health Alliance, which helps the entertainers negotiate insurance and everything like that we don't really understand most of the time. But anyway, they called me to be a part of a roast for Charlie Monk. And so I was delighted. Charlie and I've been friends for years. And of course, he can really take all the jabbing. So it was just delightful. Well, then, uh, when I went in, certain circumstances going on, Charlie, just without realizing, he was handing me all the ammunition I needed that night to fire back at him. So it went really well, and found out later that the top people with Sirius XM were there that night. I hadn't met any of them,
Oh.
didn't know. And so that's where I really auditioned. They said, well, if she's that quick on her feet on that, then we need her on the air. So I am thrilled. Came up with the idea of Sundays with Seeley. and it just kind of
Uh,
caught on. And what I try to do on my show, and here again, this came from a fan. This lady said, I love your show. She said, I love all the guys, but they tell me a lot of stuff that I can Google and find out for myself. And she said about the music, I like hearing what you talk about, how you decorate your house and how you decorate for the holidays, and
Oh,
fun little stories and things people have said to you and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I focus on mostly, is just more on a personal side. And I came up with another idea to do a phone call to some of my friends, and they like to keep them short, 5 6 minutes, so everybody will give me at least that much time usually. And so that's kind of the emphasis there, is to find out what's going on in people's life.
wow.
Fun stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. If it's not fun, I pretty much don't want to do it anymore.
Well, you look great, and
Well, thank
apparently you
you.
still have a lot of energy to keep doing what you're doing. God bless you. You have a long
Thank you.
life.
I have been very, very fortunate health wise. I think it goes back there again, growing up so far out in the country in rural Pennsylvania. I never learned, we of course didn't have fast food, places, and I never acquired a taste for fast food. I eat pretty healthy, and
that's good.
I've been always been grateful for that.
So let's talk about how you felt when you won your Grammy. How did that make you feel?
Oh my goodness. First of all, that was only the third Grammy Award for a woman, and only the fourth in country
Really?
Oh,
music,
really?
really.
Wow.
So it was so new. A lot of us really didn't even know. I say us, including me. I was so new to the business. I was still learning what a lot of things were. So
Yeah.
I have to say that it wasn't until later on that I could truly appreciate what the Grammy Award that I was given meant. And to know that it's that is chosen by your peers, that means so much more. There's
Yeah.
Really
no
does.
um
Politics.
no no politics, no hype to it. And also that it is not just the song, it is your performance. So that when I fully realized what that stood for, it means more all the time to me. I think my two prized possessions are my Grammy Award and my Opry statue.
Absolutely. I was about to
Uh,
ask about that. So it felt so good. The Opry statue. Does that mean more than your Grammy? Because again, in country music, that the Grand Ole Opry is like,
Oh,
yeah.
that's like asking me to choose between, people always say between their kids. I didn't have kids. That's like asking me to choose between my pets. They are both just so much a part of my life. They really are. A fun note on the on the Opry statue, for the people who might have watched the show Nashville. Every time Marina
Yes.
James or any of them got a Grammy, an Opry induction on that show, it was my statue they saw
wow.
because I
Really?
live so close, Of course, those are made up. At just they're not made up ahead of time. They're made for somebody. So I remember Pete Fisher, the manager, called me and he said, um, could we borrow your Opry statue, for a scene? And I'm like, no, I can't let you do that, Mr. Fisher. And he's like, we will take really good care I'll come and get it personally and I'll bring it back. And I said, sure, but there's a rental fee for it. I can't just loan that out. So it
So
it was a lot of fun.
So you're in great company. The third woman to ever get an opera. Who are the other two? Just out of curiosity.
Well, in country music, the first year they did just a country record, and Bobby Bear won that in 1963 for Detroit City. And then the next year in 64, they gave a male and a female. And my friend Dottie West won female for Here Comes My Baby. And 65, Jody Miller won it for Queen of the House, her answer to Roger Miller's King of the Road. And then I won it in 66.
You're in good company.
So you definitely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
I've been very blessed. I think that I love the era that I've been allowed
Yeah,
to
me
live
too.
in. It's just been a very special thing to get to know these heroes and call them friends.
Were you able to work with Marty Robbins?
Yes, in fact, there's a video shows up every now and then on YouTube where Dottie West and I were on with Marty together, and that was
Legend.
kind of fun. Yes, and of course at the Opry with Marty, and also I got to ride in the pace car for something out at the Nashville Speedway when he was racing too.
no, it's also interesting, Jeannie. You took some time off and then went back in the '90s. What made you the love of music come back? Right, the '90s where you made the your next run. What made
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do with I was living out in the country, and all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't participating in so many things industry wise, and you have to network in this business. I thought, well, I guess any business networking is very important, but I realized that I just wasn't involved in everything because I didn't like that long drive out into the country by myself late at night, and things were changing. It wasn't as safe to do as it was the years before. And so I'd stopped doing that. So anyway, that's when I ended up leaving the farm and moving into this little cottage on the Cumberland and getting back involved with everything. And of course, when I bought this little cottage, we had Opryland Park, the Gaslight Theater, TNN Studios, the Riverboat Taxis, the General Jackson Showboat. I was right in the middle of all of it and did everything there was to do. I miss all that.
Are they not around anymore, or just because of COVID?
Well, they closed the park,
Mm.
and which was a devastating thing to all of us in the industry and to our town, really.
How about the water
It
taxi?
was a terrible mistake, I think, because we literally sent our kids back to the street, and we took away a lot of first-time jobs, not only in the music, people like Dean Dillon, was singing in shows out there in the park and developing their talents, but also the other kids that got work experience in all the little shops and the rides and those kind of things. So it was very rough to do that. We still have the General Jackson Showboat, and that's always a delight when people come. I like to make sure they know about that and enjoy that.
Is the park still there? Or they built something on it.
They built a shopping mall.
Of course.
it's always
They
about
did the same
$3?
thing in Honolulu. It's terrible.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a long time.
So
That's understand.
before we get to Dave's question, latest project would you say is the Roadhouse? What else do you want to promote right now?
Well, of course, I'm still promoting my album that we released this past August because, and we probably will work on that longer than maybe normal. But with the pandemic and the shutdown, we were limited on how we could promote an album. And that's the first time when you think about it. I've been on a major label since the 70s. So I've been recording all this time, but not on a major label. So I'm very proud to be sharing Curb. And Mike Curb has been a wonderful man for our industry, and I was so glad he was interested in my project. So we are still working on that. We're going to start pushing a second single. The first one was the duet with Willie Nelson called "There's Not a Dry Eye in the House." And I loved what someone described. Actually, Dallas Wayne, the songwriter on that, said, "I love the interpretation you did," because he said it sounds like a conversation between two old friends. And of course, that's what
That's the
Willie and
most
I
important
are.
thing.
So I
That
think,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said that's the most important thing, that chemistry. That makes a great
Yes,
song.
Yeah,
I think so. And I think
I'm
it
gonna look that up.
that feeling comes across to the listener, I think, too. So we're probably going to focus a push maybe on a up-tempo swing song that I recorded, that I think right now the title is pretty fitting. It says "So Far So Good."
All right. Okay, so
Um,
Dave's last question, final question, Jeannie, is evolving caregiving. I called him Caregiver Dave Nasani because he's a caregiver, and he does uh, great message all over the world about caregiving. So, Dave, go ahead and ask the question to Jeannie.
Jeannie, my wife had a headache about 21 years ago. She was only 52, and it turned into a stroke. She lost her speech, became paralyzed on one side. And in that moment, our world turned upside down. And it was at that time, after a couple of year grieving period, where we almost broke up. She was angry and bitter most of the time because she couldn't talk. She still can't talk, but she can communicate non-verbally, through Pictionary, charades, a couple of games I'm still getting used to because I suck at. And she's in a power wheelchair. So we managed to travel all over the world now because she's got a great attitude and people look up to her and they're inspired by her because she does more than most normal people can. And I like to say, since 30% of caregivers actually die because of their stress in their life before their loved ones do, anyone can become a caregiver just like that. They're either going to become a caregiver or need a caregiver. And so I start this website, caregiverdave.com, to help out. I travel the country, been on TV, spoke at Harvard and NASDAQ and Carnegie Hall. And my question to you is, how has caregiving touched your life?
Well, like you said, you can become a caregiver in an instant. And 3 years ago, that happened with me, with my husband. We had gone to the opening of Ray Stevens' new cabaret. Everything was going fine. 2 days later, he was in so much pain. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Took him to ER, and they had to do emergency surgery. And you've seen some of the lawsuits about the mesh that's given people problem,
Right.
and that's what happened to him.
Mm.
So he had emergency surgery, spent 33 days in
Oh
intensive
my.
care, 5 months in rehab, so he could learn to. When he went to rehab, he could not sit up, he couldn't turn over, nothing by himself. And today he walks on those elbow crutches,
Oh.
and has a brace on his foot. But he is amazing. And like you said about your wife, that spirit never changes,
Yeah.
regardless of the physical things. And I can understand what you're saying about your wife too, because my husband dealt with that with his former wife. She had a stroke and could not speak, and he was about the only one who could understand her. So yes, caregiver is a tough job, but it's a very rewarding job to know that you can make such a difference in someone's life
Sure.
by little things. Now, that doesn't mean we don't sputter quite a bit, because we do, because somehow I don't ever do things the way he does. I think our
Sure.
major thing, Dave, is how difficult it is for me to steer while he drives from the other seat.